Elon Musk just crossed $500 billion in net worth. A figure so massive it starts to lose meaning the moment you say it out loud. But here's what makes it stranger. He's crossed it before, lost it, and crossed it again. In the span of a single year, Musk's wealth has swung by over $150 billion, more than most billionaires will ever see in a lifetime. One month he's untouchable. The next, he's dropped more value than entire companies are worth. And then, just as quickly, it comes roaring back. This isn't old money inherited through empires. It's not even the traditional story of a tech founder building something and cashing out. This is something else entirely. Wealth that breathes with perception. That rises and falls not with earnings reports, but with tweets, political associations, and the ever-shifting belief in what Elon Musk represents. While millions of people around the world weigh every grocery purchase, delay medical bills, or struggle to stay afloat, one man's net worth fluctuates by billions daily. And the system treats it as normal. Because this wasn't luck, it was design. Every company, every product, every controversy, carefully fed into a machine built not just to produce value, but to shape belief itself. But here's where things get uncomfortable. When wealth becomes this volatile, this detached from tangible output, what are we really measuring? Success? Or just the market's faith in a story that hasn't finished being told? That's not a judgment, just a question. And if that question feels loaded, maybe it's because we've stopped asking it. Before Tesla, before SpaceX, before Twitter or brain chips, Elon Musk was already doing something most entrepreneurs never master. He was creating narrative gravity. The kind that pulls media, investors, and public imagination into orbit and refuses to let go. While the early chapters of his story usually point to Zip2 and PayPal, the real breakthrough wasn't financial. It was mythological. He wasn't just building companies. He was building himself into a character the modern world didn't realize it needed. The young, eccentric billionaire who wanted to colonize Mars, electrify the roads, and merge the human brain with machines. That wasn't a marketing accident. It was architecture, and it worked because it appeared to be driven by something beyond profit. A sense of urgency, purpose, even destiny. In a world flooded with cynicism, Musk offered something strangely magnetic, a version of capitalism that didn't apologize for dreaming big. But dreams, as we know, are expensive. And when investors realized those dreams could also deliver returns, the support came pouring in. Not just in capital, but in coverage, attention, and protection. The narrative became self-reinforcing. The more outrageous the ambition, the more justified the risk. And the more risk he took, the more we believed he might actually pull it off. By the time Tesla entered the mainstream conversation, Musk was no longer just a CEO. He was a symbol. And symbols, unlike people, don't bleed easily. By the time Wall Street caught up with Elon Musk, he was already something the market couldn't easily define. And that's exactly what made him so valuable. Tesla wasn't just a car company. SpaceX wasn't just aerospace. Neuralink wasn't just biotech. Each venture positioned itself as a front-row seat to the future, and Musk was always at the center of the stage, directing the show, rewriting the script, and sometimes setting the theater on fire just to watch how the audience would react. But what made him untouchable wasn't just innovation. It was alignment. Governments needed electric vehicles. The public wanted space exploration. Investors craved high-growth tech. And Musk became the intersection where all of those desires met. Suddenly, he wasn't chasing money. Money was chasing him. And when a person becomes an ecosystem, rules start to bend. Musk learned how to weaponize attention before attention became currency. Every tweet, every interview, every appearance turned into a market signal. Share prices moved with his moods. Entire sectors shifted around his predictions. And as the line blurred between Elon the man and Elon the myth, it became harder to separate what was strategic from what was chaotic. And whether that distinction even mattered anymore. The result? A valuation machine that didn't depend on quarterly earnings, but on cultural relevance. As long as Musk mattered, Tesla's market cap could defy logic. SpaceX could raise billions, and the next tweet could erase or create billions in shareholder value overnight. That's not just business. That's a new kind of power. There's a certain irony in watching a man with $500 billion position himself as the voice of the common person. Elon Musk tweets like someone in the comments section. He speaks in memes, mocks institutions, and wages digital war against what he calls the establishment. And it works, because his image doesn't reflect his wealth. It reflects his rebellion. But here's the contradiction. You can't be the underdog when you're the system. For years, Musk cultivated a kind of techno-libertarian identity, anti-woke, anti-regulation, anti-status quo. He clashed with the media, fought government mandates, and cast himself as a disruptor too big to be cancelled. And for a large segment of the public, that narrative stuck. He wasn't a billionaire. He was a counter-billionaire, someone who challenged the elite from inside the elite. But when you own Twitter, now X, and use it to shape public discourse, when you're the largest individual shareholder in multiple trillion-dollar markets, when your companies rely on public subsidies, government contracts, and regulatory decisions, are you still the outsider? Or have you just figured out how to play both roles at once? Because in the age of attention, identity is a strategy. And Musk's greatest trick may not be building rockets or EVs. It's convincing the world that he's one of us, even while standing atop a financial empire so vast, it's invisible to most people's lived experience. Not because he's hiding it, but because we've been trained not to look too closely. If Elon Musk's net worth seems untouchable, that's because much of it isn't real. At least not in the way most people define wealth. It doesn't sit in vaults. It doesn't live in offshore accounts. It breathes in speculation. It moves with belief. And it moves violently. Between December of 2024 and March 2025, Musk lost $126 billion, nearly a quarter of his entire fortune, largely due to his public association with political controversy and declining Tesla sales. Then, just as dramatically, much of it came back. Not because the companies fundamentally changed, but because the narrative shifted. The bulk of Musk's fortune is tied to Tesla's valuation, a company that, at its peak, was worth more than the next 10 automakers combined, despite selling a fraction of the cars. Why? Because Tesla isn't just a car company. It's a story, a bet on the future. And Musk is the storyteller. He doesn't just launch products. He launches expectations. Cybertrucks announced years before production, promises of robo-taxis that never quite materialize. Demos of humanoid robots still learning how to walk. And yet, with every tweet, every announcement, every glimpse of a speculative roadmap, the valuation moves. The faith holds. Even when it crashes, it rebounds, because the belief system remains intact. This isn't manipulation, it's capitalism. But a specific kind, one where value isn't tied to performance, but to perception. And Musk, more than anyone, has mastered how to weaponize perception into capital. So when you see headlines about $500 billion, remember, it's not just a number. It's not even stable. It's a reflection of belief in a person, in a brand, and in a future that hasn't arrived yet, but feels close enough to invest in, even when that belief costs you $126 billion in 3 months. At a certain level, money doesn't just buy things. It buys time, attention, access, influence, and eventually, it buys the ability to rewrite the rules entirely. But here's the twist. Even at $500 billion, Elon Musk isn't invincible. He doesn't need a political office to shape policy. He doesn't need a media network to control narratives. He already has what every institution wants: a direct line to millions and the financial firepower to outpace governments in R&D, innovation, and scale. When he tweets, markets move. When he threatens to relocate a factory, cities compete with tax breaks. When he criticizes regulations, lawmakers pay attention. Not necessarily because he's right, but because he can afford not to care what they think. But that power comes with exposure. When he publicly aligned himself with controversial political figures, Tesla's brand took a hit. Sales dropped in key demographics. His net worth plummeted by over $100 billion in weeks. The myth of untouchability cracked, revealing that even at this scale, wealth built on belief is vulnerable to the same thing that created it: public perception. He's not alone in this, but few individuals have turned their wealth into a platform of this magnitude. And fewer still have watched it evaporate and reconstitute in real time. And that's where the real power lies. Not in the number itself, but in the ability to survive its collapse. Because when your fortune can drop by the GDP of a small nation and you're still one of the richest people alive, who exactly gets to say no? And here's the uncomfortable part. This kind of power isn't illegal. It's not even hidden. It's just normalized, slowly, quietly, until we stop seeing it for what it is. Not just extreme success, but a new form of volatility that affects everyone, even when we're not paying attention. Elon Musk is often seen as the ultimate outlier, the genius who defied gravity, rewrote the rules, and bent the world to his vision. And there's truth in that. He did take risks. He did build things others wouldn't dare attempt. But 2025 revealed something else. Even the myth can bleed. Musk didn't become a $500 billion figure solely through rebellion. He became one because the system needed someone like him to exist. Governments subsidized his factories. Tax codes favored his stock-based compensation. Markets rewarded his volatility. Algorithms amplified his persona, and fan bases, loyal, tribal, relentless, turned him from CEO to cultural icon. But that same system revealed its limits. When public opinion shifted, when his political associations became toxic to core demographics, when Tesla buyers in progressive markets started looking elsewhere, the empire shook. Not collapsed, but shook. Enough to erase $126 billion in months. That's not to say he didn't earn it. But earning becomes a complicated word when the ecosystem itself is designed to elevate certain personalities, the ones who entertain, polarize, and command attention at scale. And when that same ecosystem can just as quickly punish them for stepping outside its invisible boundaries. So, is Elon Musk the anomaly? Or is he just the most successful and most vulnerable product of a system that prizes disruption over stability, charisma over caution, and scale over everything? Because if it's the system that creates the billionaire, then maybe the story we've been sold of genius, hustle, and pure merit isn't wrong. It's just incomplete. And what does it say about that system if its greatest success story is someone whose fortune can evaporate by $126 billion in 3 months? And we barely notice? There's money. And then there's mythology. And what makes Elon Musk so unique isn't just his net worth. It's how he's managed to turn that wealth into narrative dominance. Not just controlling what people buy, but what they believe. In the age of attention, narrative is capital, and Musk knows how to spend it. He tweets a single word, and stocks move. He posts a meme, and policy debates shift. He mocks a journalist, and millions echo it like gospel. His companies, Tesla, SpaceX, XAI, don't just sell products. They sell futures, visions, identities. He's not just building cars or rockets. He's building belief systems about technology, about freedom, about who gets to lead the next civilization. And here's the part no one likes to admit. When you control the narrative, facts become secondary. If enough people believe that Elon Musk is the only one capable of saving us from AI, from climate collapse, from the collapse of meaning itself, then, in a strange way, it becomes true. Because money follows belief, power follows money, and Musk has both. He didn't just hack the market, he hacked the myth-making machine. And in a world starving for leaders, visionaries, saviors, the richest man on Earth became something even more untouchable, a story too profitable to question. Elon Musk is worth $500 billion. Sometimes. Maybe not tomorrow. And maybe that's the point. The real question isn't how much he's worth, but what that volatility says about us, about the systems we uphold, the values we reward, the futures we silently endorse. Musk didn't steal his fortune. He built it with vision, strategy, and a rare ability to bend reality toward his will. But in doing so, he also revealed something deeper about the world we live in. That influence, not invention, is the currency of the 21st century. That power no longer needs a throne, just a platform, a brand, an unwavering belief. But he also showed us the fragility of that power. How quickly $126 billion can vanish when perception shifts. How even at $500 billion, you're still tethered to the same forces that lifted you there. Public opinion, market sentiment, and the collective decision to keep believing. So now that the empire exists, massive, volatile, unprecedented, we're left with one final question. In a world where one man can gain or lose $100 billion in months based on nothing but belief, what does wealth even mean anymore? And if it's this unstable at the top, what does that say about the foundation we're all standing on?